I never believed that the most terror-inducing stories would come from right next door. Yet, when I moved into my modest suburban home, I discovered that every neighborhood hides unspeakable secrets. It started with subtle sounds at night and the uncanny feeling that I was never alone. I soon learned that some neighbors aren't merely reclusive, they are cursed by forces that defy explanation. I still remember the whispers that echoed through my walls, the inexplicable glimmers in the dark, and that bone-deep realization that my neighbor's silence was laden with malevolence. This is my true story of terror, an experience that drove me to the brink and changed my life forever. I moved into my new home in a quiet cul-de-sac, hoping for a fresh start after a series of personal tragedies. The house was old but charming, and it had the kind of character that promised stability. Yet from the very first night, something felt off. There was an uncanny chill in the air that no heater could explain, and at midnight the corridors seemed to whisper with memories of a long-forgotten past. Almost immediately, I began noticing things that defied logic. A dim, flickering light would persist in the neighboring house, one that was supposed to be vacant for years. I'd hear soft knocking behind my walls and the steady hum of an unknown machine that seemed to resonate from deep within. At first, I attributed these occurrences to the quirks of an old building, but soon the signs became impossible to ignore. One night, while trying to sleep, I heard a series of slow, deliberate taps on the window shared with my neighbor's property. There was no one outside when I looked. The darkness was absolute. The next morning, I found strange marks on the glass, deep scratches, as if someone or something had tried to claw its way in. My growing anxiety drove me to check the neighborhood's records. I learned that my next-door property had been vacant for over a decade, its previous owner having vanished without trace. No one knew what had happened. Weeks passed and the incidents grew bolder. I started finding inexplicable symbols etched on my fence and even on the door of my mailbox, symbols I'd never seen before, looking like arcane runes or warnings. At first, I believed they were pranks, but the meticulous, almost ritualistic nature of these markings left no room for casual explanation. I confided in a few close friends, but they dismissed my concerns as overactive imagination. I, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked behind the silence of the neighbor's empty house. I began documenting every detail: audio recordings of nightly knocks that echoed at the dead of night, photos of the mysterious scratches on the window, and even old newspaper clippings hinting at bizarre disappearances and unexplained phenomena in the area. During this time, I also started noticing more disturbing happenings, ghostly reflections in mirrors that weren't mine, and at one point I heard what sounded like faint sobbing emanating from the abandoned property. The dread in my chest deepened as I connected the pieces. There was something very wrong with that house. Its emptiness concealed a haunting presence. I began to feel watched, as if the darkness itself had taken form behind those boarded-up windows. By the time I realized the full extent of the curse in my own neighborhood, I felt trapped in a living nightmare, with every night bringing new, inexplicable horrors. The quiet beginnings were merely the prelude to an ordeal that would soon consume me. Desperation drove me to seek answers. I decided to hire a private detective with a reputation for solving cold cases and dealing with strange phenomena. My case file, filled with audio logs, photographs, and handwritten notes, became the cornerstone of his investigation. We met in a cramped, dimly lit office filled with dusty case files and outdated equipment. Every piece of evidence pointed to one conclusion. The neighbor's house, long abandoned and rumored to harbor a dark secret, was at the center of these eerie occurrences. I retraced my own experiences and compiled a timeline: the nightly knocks, the claw marks, and the inexplicable symbols that began appearing all over my property. The detective and I scoured old town records and local folklore. We discovered that similar incidents had plagued the neighborhood for decades, disappearances that were officially marked as accidents, yet whispered about as curses. Old police reports spoke of strange lights in the woods and odd temperature drops around that very house. Our investigation led us to the deserted property next door. On a cold and foggy evening, we visited the house. Its windows were boarded up, its front door rusted and unyielding. But the yard told a different story. Fresh scratches in the paint, disturbed ground near the fence, and the unmistakable scent of decay. We collected samples and took meticulous notes, but nothing prepared me for what we uncovered next. In the overgrown backyard, partially hidden beneath a fallen tree, we found a small, dilapidated shed. Inside, amidst broken furniture and discarded personal items, was a collection of photographs and old videotapes documenting bizarre occurrences. One tape in particular was chilling. It showed a series of rapid cuts, vague images of a shadowed figure moving in a dark room, unnatural close-ups of symbols etched into walls, and an almost inaudible, desperate whisper that repeated the phrase, "Don't stay," repeatedly. The footage ended abruptly, leaving us with more questions than answers. As our investigation progressed, I could feel the weight of the unknown pressing in on me. Every new clue deepened the mystery. Faded newspaper clippings, archival police reports, and even whispered rumors from longtime residents painted a picture of a cursed neighbor, a force so malevolent that it defied conventional explanation, blending elements of a haunted past with an insatiable hunger for fear. One stormy night, driven by mounting desperation, I decided to confront the source of my terror. With nothing left to lose, I ventured into the darkness surrounding the neighbor's property. The wind howled and rain battered the pavement as I approached the decrepit house. I don't recall what compelled me to step forward. Perhaps it was the sheer need to know, or the oppressive feeling that the curse was already a part of me. In the thick, oppressive darkness, I found the overgrown garden behind the house. The trees here were ancient, and their twisted silhouettes danced under the erratic glow of a blood-red moon. I could see, in flashes, what seemed to be movement between the gnarled trunks. As I moved closer, a chilling sensation crawled over my skin. A sudden, deep rumble echoed from within the darkened interior of the house, an unearthly sound that vibrated through my bones. Driven by a mix of fear and morbid fascination, I forced my way through a gap in the boarded-up windows. Inside, the remnants of a life long abandoned were scattered among decaying furniture and shattered glass. The silence was shattered by a series of distant, ghostly whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. In those moments, I swear I felt a presence beside me, a cold, relentless force that was as old as the building itself. For hours, I wandered through dark, narrow corridors, recording every sound and shadow. The further I went, the more I realized that the house was not a simple abandoned structure. It was a living monument to terror, steeped in occult history and unspeakable rituals. Faded symbols were etched into the walls with a precision that defied time, and a guttural, rhythmic thrum pulsed from the very foundations. At one point, I stumbled upon a hidden room filled with strange artifacts. Broken mirrors, ancient religious icons defaced with cryptic markings, and a single unmarked VHS tape lying on a dusty table. I never got to watch it. What I heard in that room sent me fleeing as if chased by the very hands of hell. That night changed everything. I became obsessed with understanding what lurked behind those decaying walls. And as I listened to the echoing sounds of whispering shadows and felt the oppressive weight of the unknown, I knew that the answer was far darker and more personal than I could have ever imagined. The investigation culminated in a confrontation that blurred the lines between the natural and the supernatural. I was driven to the brink of obsession as I followed a trail that led deeper into a forgotten part of the forest. There, the terrain became alien. Rocks formed bizarre shapes, and trees twisted into grotesque silhouettes against the stormy sky. At the center of a circle of ancient stone monoliths, I discovered a hidden clearing, a relic of forgotten rites. The ground was scarred with symbols pulsing with an unholy light, and the air vibrated with a low, rhythmic hum. In that charged place of arcane power, the creature waited. Its form was fully revealed, a monstrous amalgam of flesh and shadow, with jagged edges and pulsating veins made of pure darkness. Then it happened. The confrontation was violent and surreal. As I approached, the creature lunged with a speed that defied its hideous appearance, delivering a barrage of slashing, inhuman motions. The clearing erupted into chaos as supernatural forces collided with raw determination. With each step I took, the creature's relentless assault intensified, a macabre dance of terror, where every moment stretched into an eternity. Blood mingled with rain on the forest floor as its claws and tendrils lashed out in a brutal, slasher-like frenzy. In the midst of the struggle, the ancient stones around me began to glow brighter, and the ground trembled as if awakening from a long slumber. It then became painfully clear. This creature was not just an isolated horror. It was the living embodiment of the forest's curse, a force that had claimed countless lives over the years. What began as a desperate investigation had escalated into a fight for survival against an otherworldly predator that thrived on fear and suffering. In the aftermath of the brutal confrontation, the forest fell into an eerie calm. I, battered and barely clinging to life, stumbled out of the cursed clearing as dawn broke, a pale, indifferent light piercing the remnants of night. Yet, even as I emerged into the open, the horror was far from over. In the silent hours that followed, I pieced together the true nature of the curse. The missing hiker's fate was only one fragment of a larger, malevolent tapestry, a network of lost souls, ancient rituals, and a dark force that had claimed the wilderness for centuries. The evidence I gathered, from cryptic symbols carved into ancient trees to ghostly whispers echoing along forgotten paths, revealed an entity that was both part of the land and an insatiable predator of human fear. As my investigation drew to a close, a chilling truth became inescapable. Some mysteries are best left unsolved. The forest still guarded its secrets, and the creature, this amalgam of slasher horror, paranormal terror, and retro-occult mystery, remained a permanent, lurking presence. In my final report, I warned that those who wander too far off the beaten path might one day vanish, claimed by the relentless, ancient curse of the wild. In a final, heart-wrenching monologue recorded in trembling whispers, I confessed my own fate. I could no longer escape the pervasive dread that had taken root in my soul. Every beat of my heart reminded me that once you confront the darkness, it never truly lets you go. If you ever venture into the wilderness and hear the distant echoes of lost souls, remember the story of the missing hiker and the detective who sought the truth. The curse of the forest is real, and its hunger is never satisfied. Stay away from the shadows, for what lurks in the darkness may one day claim you too.